Good evening and welcome to Money Matters. My name is Charlie Huntington and I'm Public Relations Chairperson for Life Sciences PA. Life Sciences PA is the voice of advancement for PA's bioscience, medical device, CRO, and healthcare IT industries. Today we continue our special series on science leaders in our local community. I'd like to remind our viewers that from time to time, financial issues relating to life sciences, healthcare, or technology matters or companies may be discussed on the show. These discussions are not and should not be viewed as financial advice. Moreover, since this program is pre-recorded and shown at a later date, please keep in mind that the information may no longer be current. You should always check with your financial advisor before entering into any financial transaction. I'm pleased to have with me tonight as my co-host, Kimon Hatza. Kimon is a business attorney and partner at GrowthCounsel LLC in Philadelphia. His focus is on life sciences, healthcare, and information technology areas. Welcome, Kimon.
Thanks, Charlie. Happy to be here.
Kimon, can you tell us what's new with your practice, please, since our last show?
Sure. Thanks, Charlie. Be happy to do that. With regard to matters in the life sciences area, I'm currently working on an M&A matter representing a well-respected life sciences consulting company that's in the process of selling. Company has gotten a lot of interest, and that's a very active matter right now. That'll be ongoing, I anticipate, for the next 60 to 90 days, probably. I'm also representing a medical device company in its next round of financing. It's gotten a lot of traction. Its product is being used right now, and it's doing very well. So I'm looking forward to that, and that transaction is getting started imminently. On the tech side, I am representing a company with a software product in the security industry. It's an interesting product. We are in the process of doing a corporate restructuring for that company and then having a financing transaction to follow on that restructuring. So things are busy, and hopefully they'll stay that way for a while.
Good for you, Kimon. Congrats on your success.
Thank you, Charlie.
So for questions to be answered on a future show, here's how viewers can do it.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, -matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
It's with great pleasure that I introduce Greg Bosch. Greg brings over 30 years of experience in the life science and healthcare sectors and is currently chairman and CEO of Panavance Therapeutics, a spin-out of the Geistlich Group in 2021, where Greg was CEO of Geistlich Pharma North America. Prior to that, Greg was president and CEO of PureCore, a company focused on a novel antimicrobial technology. Greg led this private venture-backed company through a successful IPO on the London Stock Exchange. Prior to his experience with PureCore, he held roles of increasing responsibility at American Hospital Supply, Baxter International, including general manager of the biosurgery business, vice president of strategic planning, and assistant to the president, in which he lived in Austria and Switzerland. He currently serves on the board of Kibo Biotech Incorporated. In 2006, he was named CEO of the Year in the Philadelphia life sciences sector, and he earned his undergrad degree in public policy from Duke and an MBA from DePaul. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Charlie. It's really it's great to be here, and thank you for the opportunity and asking. And congratulations on pronouncing Geislish correctly.
Hey.
That's the first test.
Well, the best fortune cookie I ever opened is a short pencil beats a long memory. So yeah, I've that to credit that for. So Greg, how'd you get into this business?
Oh, I mean, where do you want to start? Going back to, I've been in life sciences my whole career. And, it kind of goes back to actually even in university, I was looking to consider a medical path and opted to instead try to get out and to make a living. And the life science industry was quite, I didn't really understand what it was at the time, the difference between medical devices and pharmaceuticals and diagnostics and so on. And had the opportunity to start off with American Hospital Supply. It was, you kind of luck into some things. It was an incredible company. Ended up spending 19 years there through a variety of roles. And I think we had 8 moves, 3 countries, and just an incredible culture. So it started off really in the pursuit of medicine, and it morphed into an industrial or an industry play, which has been just, I've had a charmed life in all candor. So very happy to be able to share it.
Greg, tell us about Panavance.
So it's a fantastic company and a great story. We created Panavance 2 years ago, actually this month, as a new U.S. company. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of the Geislish company, which you mentioned. It's a Swiss company, a 175-year-old family-owned business. And they're the global leader in medical devices, specifically regenerative medicine in the oral surgery, periodontal industry. So think of bone grafts and collagen materials, and they really are the global leader. And they had a small molecule program that they were developing, and I was actually leading that as well while at Geislish. And in all candor, Geislish isn't a drug development company. It's not an oncology company. So we agreed, and the Geislish board agreed to create this new co as a separate entity to really be able to focus on the science and the drug development in the oncology field. We are a clinical stage company. We're currently in a phase 1 oncology study here in the United States and in Korea. We have focused specifically on pancreatic cancer as the phase 1 study, and we've treated 38 patients now across these 6 clinical sites. And we can talk about the program, but we're dose escalating. And in phase 1, you increase the dose, and we're continuing to do that right now and expect to do so for about another 9 to 12 months. So the company remains entirely owned by the Swiss parent company. And one of my responsibilities, of course, is to attract potential partners, be it strategic pharmaceutical companies, financial investors, venture capital, family offices, as we continue to evolve and move towards our later stage clinical programs.
Thank you. And we'll touch a little bit more on that later. So in preparation for this, Greg, with Kimon, we talked about GP 2250 and why that's so important. Being that we're a financial talk show, enlighten our viewers as to what GP 2250 is, please. And again, why is it so important?
Well, it's very important because that is the company Panavance. That is our core asset. It is a small molecule chemical compound. It's a new chemical entity, so it's really a novel drug, and it is what we're focusing and developing. We've gone through all of the chemistry work, to try to develop the compound, manufacture the compounds. We've done that now successfully multiple times, and we've gone through all the animal studies to determine its toxicity profile, its safety profile, its potential uses in different cancers, and we've now advanced that GP 2250 into the clinic. So that is the drug that we're testing in pancreatic cancer. It has a broad anti-neoplastic or anti-cancer benefit. And so as we look at the opportunities of where it could potentially be used clinically, we see this going across many, many different cancers. we have tested this in vitro or in lab, benchtop testing in over 300 different types of cancers. In animal models, we've tested over 15 different types of cancers, and we do see significant benefit, as we call it, monotherapy, meaning the drug itself has an anti-cancer effect, but we also use it in the case of our phase 1 study in combination with other drugs, such as gemcitabine or bevacizumab or PARP inhibitors. And we've been able to demonstrate really great synergy between the two drugs. So 1 + 1 is greater than 2, basically, when we provide these into the clinical setting. So that's the goal. So it's a very important asset. It's also a new drug, so it has a very young patent life. So that's obviously very important for potential investors. And we've really done a wonderful job to define it, understand how it does, what it does from a mechanism standpoint. I just got a great team at Panavance to help really articulate the story and understand the program and define our strategy very well.
Greg, just picking up on something you just mentioned to Charlie, with the potential broad application of this small molecule to so many different types of cancers, what made you hone in on pancreatic cancer as the first thing to start with?
That's a great question. And sadly, as you probably know, pancreatic cancer is one of the worst cancers, with about a 5% survival rate at 5 years. So we certainly didn't pick an easy path. Not that there is a, quote, easy path in any drug development, and certainly in oncology. But we were led by the science, very simply. And some of our earliest work in the animal models was done in pancreatic cancer. And we saw really exceptional results. And not to go into too much detail of how the studies work, but we could see that the addition of our drug had a benefit in the treatment of these animals. And then the combination of 2250 with this other drug, which we're using called gemcitabine, we actually saw tumor regression, meaning the size of the tumors actually shrank. So that's pretty powerful. And if, as you know, and folks that are listening know, in drug development, you can't assume anything based on animal studies. They're to some degree predictors, but mainly to kind of point you in different directions. So that's how we started. And we were very fortunate to get introduced to some of the world leading pancreatic cancer experts to help us design the clinical study. And based on that, our plan is to move into, we're in phase 1, to go to a phase 3 study to treat pancreatic cancer in a maintenance mode. So try to maintain patients as long as possible in a stable disease setting or a stable disease status. So kind of a long answer to a great question. It really started with the science. That was some of the original preclinical work we did.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned that you have a patent. So this is proprietary IP that you're using right now.
Right.
Okay.
It's actually a portfolio of patents. As you know, in intellectual property, you try different ways. The drug itself, the compound, has what's called a composition of matter patent, which is probably the most important because that really protects the asset itself. But we've also protected how we manufacture it, so manufacturing processes, fields that it can be used in, and there are actually some other related compounds that would follow on from this initial drug for the portfolio development.
How would you say that this compound is different than what competitors of yours in the industry are using?
Well, look, the great thing, I was just at the big ASCO meeting. It's the big annual oncology meeting in Chicago. And the wonderful thing about cancer development and therapeutics is that there's been significant evolution and progress over the past 20 years in many, many cancers, which is great. And there's all types of, whether it's small molecule, large molecule, monoclonal antibody, immune therapy, immuno-oncology assets that are out there. This is unique because the way it does what it does, the mechanism of action is nothing like that we've been able to identify, in that it really affects two pathways. One is impacting the energy metabolism of the cancer cell. In other words, how does a cancer cell generate the energy, process glucose, for example, to survive? And our drug impacts that pathway, down-regulating a couple very key enzymes called GAPDH and hexokinase. But the other important aspect is we affect the way the drug grows and proliferates. We impact essentially the DNA and the protein synthesis by down-regulating another key enzyme called NF-kappa beta. So it's this kind of dual pathway process to impact that cancer cell, both interior in terms of creating this energy stress and what's called apoptosis, and then in general, how a cancer cell proliferates. So there's, to our understanding, nothing like that. And that actually is part of a patent application in terms of the mechanism that is also under prosecution right now as well.
Okay. Now you mentioned to Charlie that you were in phase 1 clinical studies, but I think I also heard you say that you were moving to phase 3. So you're skipping over phase 2. I mean, how does that work? Can you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
Correct. Well, so after our phase 1, after we did make the dose determination, we have multiple diseases we want to pursue. In pancreatic cancer, the plan is to go right to a phase 3 study. It has an interim look, what will be called for futility. So to some extent, it's kind of a phase 2/3, but the endpoint is progression-free survival. And so essentially, to go into a phase 2 in this regard, you would have to decide what would be the go, no go. How would you make the determination and if it's progression? And the reality is you can just follow those same patients all the way through the phase 2 quote portion into the phase 3. So it's a phase 2/3, but essentially it will be for registration. In ovarian cancer, different disease, we are planning a phase 2/3. And the phase 2 would also have some interim looks for proof of concept. And also we're going to be looking at what's called an accelerated approval pathway with the FDA. And so that would be a phase 2/3. So really depending on the amount of capital that can be raised, or if a strategic partner, for example, looks to prioritize a certain disease over another, we may or may not start with just the phase 3 in pancreatic. Really important is that because this has a broad anti-cancer play and it has this potential to play synergistically with these many other drugs, it is very possible that as we determine our dose, a pharmaceutical company may say, look, I would love to have this and look at it for head and neck cancer or colorectal cancer or triple negative breast cancer. And that may turn into a phase 2. It may turn into a phase 2/3. So the pathway, the good news is there's multiple potential shoots to the strategic pathway in the clinic going forward.
Okay. One additional thing, how are you progressing in the clinical studies?
Great question. Very well. So just a brief education. So as in phase 1, you're primarily first and foremost looking for, is the drug safe? How safe is the drug? How much of the drug can be given before there's some sort of toxicities or harmful effect? And then you would stop, of course. So you start at very, very low doses based on going back to the animal work and your preclinical work, and then you start at low doses and you escalate up. We've been able to show we're currently at what's called the 9th dose, expect to be at the 10th dose next month. We've shown that the drug is incredibly safe. The tolerability profile of this is excellent. And we're treating patients in cancer therapy. You have first line, second line, third line, and we're treating currently in our study in what's called second line. So these patients have already been treated with another drug in first line. And unfortunately, they progress negatively. So the tumors grow. They then get advanced to the next drug, which would, in this case, be gemcitabine. In our study, it's gemcitabine, and they're adding 2250. So we're currently at the 9th dose, incredibly safe. We are actually very encouraged because we're starting to see what we think are some hints at efficacy. We've had what are called 4 partial responders. These are patients who have some of their tumors have reduced more than 30%, which is really good in general in cancer. It's especially good, of course, in pancreatic cancer, which is really challenging. And this has not been formally published yet, but we have shared that we even have a patient in one of the last cohorts, most recent cohorts, who has now been on study for over 6 months, and his tumors have reduced more than 50%. About a year and a half ago, we actually had a patient stay on our drug because of the safety profile over 2 years, and that patient actually contributed his story to the Let's Win Pancreatic Cancer patient advocacy website. So really encouraged by the safety profile. As expected, we knew it would have a good profile. And now as we're getting to the higher doses that are similar to what we tested in the preclinical models, we're starting to see what we hope are some encouraging hints at efficacy.
The success is very inspiring, Greg. Congrats.
Well, this issue, everybody has tough jobs in life, but it is a reason to get up in the morning when you think, just maybe this could have a dent in cancer therapy in general. But boy, if we could do something in pancreatic cancer, that'd be very cool.
I want to follow up something that you said to me earlier. You said that in phase 1, the trials, I believe, are focused in the US and Korea. And why Korea?
So a good question. So we wanted to go.
These are the pancreatic trials, right?
Correct. Yeah. So we have 4 US sites, and we wanted to be able to expand at least into one international location for diversity of the patient population, for the opportunity to start to go through the regulatory process, because as we go to these extended studies in any disease, it'll be helpful to have the regulatory agencies already have seen the profile, the package, and all the data to support the drug. There's an exceptionally good patient population and CRO process, clinical research organizations, and a very consolidated population in Seoul. So our hope is that can continue to accelerate the rate of enrollment as well.
Thank you. You touched earlier, but I just want to drill down on how are you financed and how do you see that moving forward in the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we are currently wholly owned and exclusively financed by the Geisler Group in Switzerland. Obviously, one of my main priorities is to try to attract additional, as I mentioned, additional pharmaceutical or financial investors, strategics to partner with. We are financed and will continue to be financed to support this phase 1 activity. The level of cost goes up significantly as we move into the extended studies or the registration studies. And that will absolutely require access to external financing. You are well aware, the life science financial market has just been perhaps the worst it's ever been, certainly in the past 20 years. Over the past 18, 24 months, it has been incredibly challenging. And that's true, especially in pharmaceutical, and even to some extent, especially in small molecule pharmaceutical, which has been exacerbated by the Inflation Reduction Act, which puts significant pressure on small molecule timelines in terms of their reimbursement path. So we're fortunate to be financed currently. But to really see this drug to get to where we want to with patient therapy, we're going to be looking for private, public access to funds and everywhere in between.
Thank you. You mentioned when we were preparing for this that your team is virtual, and you also said that many of them are semi-retired.
Right.
Can you elaborate on that for us?
Right. So the Panavance company is virtual. I've got colleagues in Switzerland, Canada, all over the U.S., and of course our Korean colleagues. We have intentionally built a team with folks that have incredible expertise and depth in their functional area, but really are either in a consulting mode, that's how they operate, or most of them actually have semi-retired. They don't want full-time. They actually financially don't need it perhaps, and they don't want it. But they really want to be part of a team. They want to be part of contributing to something important and using their skills. So I've got a great group, and we have, as a collective team, been working together in most cases 7 to 8 years with this program. And so, we've carved that out into the Panavance company. But I think the most junior team member on the team has less, about 12 months, but everyone else is 5 to 8 years of experience. And so we operate like a family, even though it's virtual and many of them are part-time, but it works. And candidly, from an economic perspective, the idea of needing to recruit, let's say, a full-time oncologist or a full-time vice president or chief scientific officer with the expenses and all the benefits, it would be prohibitive. We couldn't do what we have done with the amount of money spent thus far in this program. And I think it's a great model. It requires an incredible amount of communication. It requires the right people, right, at the right point in their career who want to be part of something like this, because it's very easy. We all get attracted. It's like, well, what's the opportunity? What's the equity play, or what's my title, or where am I going? And we've all been through that in our career, and that's just not something that a lot of small companies like a Panavance really can afford, but also more importantly, even need. We don't need full-time 10 people working, because there's not that much to do. So you call upon skills as they're needed.
Kim, I think we've done this for about 15 years now, and we've gone from where people were saying that professors with their IP still involved need to quit their day jobs and leave university to now virtual. I mean, it's remarkable.
It really is.
Greg, are you seeing?
For the record, I'm full-time.
That's awesome. All right. But when you do fundraising, would you say that your model for companies, I'm not going to say startup, because you guys are not exactly a startup, but is yours more the exception or the norm now with what we've all been through with COVID?
I think it's becoming more of the norm. The tricky part really is finding great team members who are stable and consistent. And we have a lot of revolving seats. We've not had that. We're very fortunate. So a lot of luck, a lot of great team members. But realistically, and as you probably know, most companies that are struggling to raise capital right now. So if they had built up full-time team members, a lot of them are scaling back right now. And that's a hard direction to go. I'd rather go the other direction, where as we bring financing in, we will start to bring some of those skill sets on full-time, especially as we move into the clinic. We'll bring on clinical operations, clinical skills on board full-time that we need to really drive those programs.
Thank you, Greg. I want to let Kimon ask. We've got about 2 minutes left. I want to let Kimon ask a final question, if you'd like to, Kimon, and then I'll wrap the show up.
Yeah, Greg, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to move off the company for a second, because we talked about something that was very interesting to Charlie and me. During COVID, you were part of a national championship tennis team that won the USTA in 2021.
There you go.
Could you take a minute and just talk to us and our viewers about that a little bit?
Actually, we need to do 30 minutes on this topic.
That's right. That's right.
It's fun to try to stay young. And, one of the most, so we won the U.S. Nationals at the men's 40. It was out in Oklahoma City, believe it or not. But there's 17 teams that come from Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and our team won. And yours truly had a fun ride out in Oklahoma City. But I'll tell you what is special is it's hard to be part of a team, and we're all in teams at business, right? But to be part of a team, whether it's, someone playing softball or, pickup basketball or something like this, where you build incredible friendships, deep friendships with a group of, in this case, men for us, it was such a ride. And there's a bond that has been created like no other.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Kimon, thank you for co-hosting. Greg, you're a great guest. I want to remind our viewers that David Emery from Planning Capital is going to be the guest on next Money Matters episode. As always, thank you for tuning in, and good afternoon.
Kim and Charlie, thank you.